I got an internship, and then that led to my first job, and I just loved it so much. So if you too love the feeling of getting coverage, PR is for you, because it's the thing that keeps us going. You know, it takes a lot of work, but when that story hits, we all get so excited.
Welcome to the Sold Out Sales Podcast, the podcast that will equip both the seasoned sales professional and the more reluctant seller with mindset shifts and strategies needed to succeed in a competitive marketplace. Welcome to the Sold Out Sales Podcast, everybody. I'm so glad to be here. Today, I have with me my dear friend and client, Amy Jackson. Amy, how are you doing?
I'm good. It's good to be here and to reconnect. And thank you for having me.
For sure, for sure. So everyone can go and read your bio on the website and all of that, but I want you to tell us what's something that we're not going to find on your bio or on your website that we should know about you.
I've been thinking a lot lately about the fact that I played sport as a child and a teenager, and I think that was very formative for me. And it's actually something that's kind of returned as an interest in my life these days.
Oh, so what are you playing here lately?
I've been playing a lot of tennis.
Oh, wow.
And I would like to be playing golf, but I haven't really committed there yet.
I hear you. You know, I played basketball all through school, and I loved it. But believe it or not, volleyball was my favorite. But I excelled at basketball, and I loved volleyball. And my coaches were like, "Get your butt on that basketball court." So I did that. But I was terrible at tennis. I'm still terrible at tennis.
Oh, well, you know what? Even when you just try, it's good exercise.
Oh, God,
It can be fun.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
So, Amy, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about the world of PR. Tell us about your business, and then tell us a little bit about the world of PR and how it relates to sales.
Yes. So I have been in PR my whole career, but I have not been doing sales my whole career. But there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
So the traditional path into PR is that you study journalism, you get to know how journalists write so that you can pitch them on behalf of the company that you work for, whether you're an agency or you're in a corporate position. And that was a really formative way to understand journalists and have empathy for the way that they write and the way they think about headlines and what is timely in the news and what their readers want to be, learning about. And so that was really the foundation of my career. I ended up working for a large global agency right out of school, which was a great opportunity to do some very cool campaigns. My favorite being working with the US Potato Board. We did a balloon in the Macy's parade. We had a pop-up in Chelsea Market. We did school assemblies all around the nutritional benefits of potatoes and how to prepare them healthfully. So that was a really exciting kickoff to my career. And then I moved to Silicon Valley and worked with tech startups and ended up in a corporate role for a long time with TripIt, which is in the travel space, and then decided to venture out on my own and start TaleSplash. And this was following the pandemic. I was really inspired by the very much real-time news cycle that we had all been part of, whether it was related to supply chain issues or vaccines. And I really wanted to help founders tell their story because I had been inspired by podcasts like How I Built This and magazines like Inc. and Entrepreneur. And so that was really what I started the agency around the premise of, was helping founders tell their story. It has now grown to 9 women, and we work with brands that are really focused on health, safety, and family. And we work remotely. We're all over the country, and we purposefully do that so that everybody can have a life outside of work and bring all of their decades of experience to our clients. And where sales comes in is really around taking what I've learned from pitching for 2 decades, because journalists are just as difficult to get a response from or engage with as a potential client is if you're doing sales. Yeah. And in the last few years as an agency owner, I've been the primary individual running sales here at TaleSplash. So I've learned a ton, and I credit you, Tish, for so much of the learning.
Oh, thank you. You're pretty amazing already, though, but thank you. So I love that you help people to really tell their story, to share with the world things that they probably would not have the capacity to do on their own. So help our audience, help us to understand, how can we position ourselves so that we are better equipped to get more business as a result of our PR? And then on the flip side, what's the one mistake you think clients come to you expecting to be able to become millionaires overnight because of their PR? So how does it help us? And what are the things that we
Yeah.
might be probably a little disillusioned about?
Yeah, I love that question. So, when I started the business, there were some really interesting platforms that had been developed for PR professionals, really leveraging AI to connect reporters and sources in real time for stories that they're on deadline for, and they need that level of expertise. And that's really influenced the kind of work we do with clients, where a lot of our executives and founders that we work with, they want to build out a thought leadership platform. And in many cases, they're doing it for the first time with us. And so a really great option for somebody that's either new to the world of PR, doesn't have a big digital footprint already, or maybe doesn't have a lot of time because they're running their company or they're a busy executive, having that kind of marketplace where journalists and PR professionals interact with each other and find stories where they can work together quickly, is a great kind of modern PR solution that we have embraced. And now that's available with podcasts too. So we can help our clients find podcasts that are really specialized in their industry. And so that takes us to your next question around expectations and kind of myths about how PR works. PR is not a performance marketing channel. You can't put a certain amount of money into it and expect a certain result. You really have to look at it as it takes time to build a foundation, to establish yourself as a source for journalists, and to also partner with your PR agency or your freelancer, or if you're hiring someone to do PR, you really need to partner with them. It's not a transactional relationship. And so I think what often happens is people somehow get the idea that they need to do PR because maybe they're launching a new company or they're hearing from their investors that there's a lot of value in getting that validation from journalists and podcasts. But they don't understand that it takes time and it takes an incredible amount of persistence.
Yeah.
And so it's not something that you can expect to turn into results immediately. And you really have to be in a position to invest in the long term in a partner.
Wow. So where would you say someone would probably be in their business, whether it's amount of years or revenue, before they're really ready to invest in the way that you're describing?
So it's a combination of resources. It's your time. So being able to be available on a moment's notice for a reporter's request or for an interview, especially if you have put out an announcement, there could be interest in speaking with you. Having even just a couple hours a week set aside for that kind of thing. The problem is you won't know when it happens, so you can't always schedule it ahead of time. So just making sure that you have the capacity to respond to those on deadline requests. And then financially speaking, you really have to think about what can you set aside per month for at least 6 months to a year, and ideally longer. And whatever that is, you will likely find an option for you. So, agencies are going to be more expensive than individuals. And there are tools that you can DIY, but you need to have the time to learn and understand how to use them. And it really can provide a lot of benefit if you are able to invest in a partner where they have all of that experience in PR to draw from. So you're not having to learn it for yourself for the first time. So there are options for every budget, but you can't look at it as, I'm just going to test this out for a month or 3 months. It really needs to be, this is part of my annual budget, and I'm ready to invest and give it an adequate amount of time to see what happens and see what the response is from journalists and podcasts.
I love that you mentioned that, sometimes people can kind of DIY it, but they need to really know what they're doing. For the person, even like the smaller business that's really doing well, but just doesn't understand the power of PR, how might they confuse what they're doing on social media with PR, true PR? What are the differences there?
Yeah, it's really interesting because there's been some articles lately about how Even influencers are understanding the power of legacy media. There was an article in the Business of Fashion about this because social media is so real time, in the moment. What's viral? What's in pop culture? What are the trends? PR is a long game, and the value of PR is for the long haul. So if you get quoted in an article, that article will live on, right? Long past social media trends.
Right.
And so there's a benefit to doing both, but they're for different things, right? Typically, social media is already your followers, your connections, people that, are really your advocates. They're going to be the ones really engaging with your social content. In some cases, you can reach new people, but it's a lot harder. PR is really reaching new people. So that's the goal, is to get in front of new eyeballs or new ears. And that's the power of PR.
I love that. How have you seen with clients or just across the board in your career, the PR that is done consistently and the way that you're discussing it, how might it help someone to be more successful in acquiring new clients?
So it really is a game of testing and learning. I sometimes refer to it as a Goldilocks exercise to see what the right mix is for you. What are the types of requests that you might be able to respond to that are stories that are already being written? What's your capacity to respond to those? Because many of them are on deadline. And then, how much demand is there for you versus how proactive do you need to be? And we always use a mix of both, but some clients are really in demand. So we don't need to do as much proactive outreach because there's a lot of requests coming in that are a fit for them. So it really just depends. That's the hard answer, is like, there's no formula that can work for everybody. It really is personalized and tailored. And, I've worked in so many different industries, from food to tech to consumer lifestyle. And across all of those different industries, there are commonalities, but even within an industry, it's gonna vary.
Yeah, very interesting. So you've been in this world for a long time, Amy. What was the thing that caused you to say, I want to work in PR? How did you end up in this industry?
So it's a great question. I was working in a student government office, and I, at the same time, applied for a role to be the PR coordinator. And everybody that was surrounding me in the student government would call me the PR queen. So it was like this natural, like, Amy's known as the PR queen. And this was like in college. And then at a certain point, I was studying psychology and art, trying to become an art therapist, which Who knows, maybe that would have been a good fit or not. It's hard to say. And I actually had a roommate when I was studying abroad that said, you're always promoting things. I feel like you should maybe think about studying PR, like you're already doing it in student government. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I should just maybe take some classes. And sure enough, I fell in love. I ended up extending my studies so I could study journalism with a PR emphasis. I got an internship, and then that led to my first job. And I just loved it so much. I loved the writing piece of it. I loved the creativity. And then now I really, truly still love every time one of our clients gets coverage. It's like the best feeling in the world. So if you too love the feeling of getting coverage, PR is for you, because it's the thing that keeps us going. It takes a lot of work, but when that story hits, we all get so excited.
Yeah, I love that. And such an interesting story. Number one, I've never met in my adult life anyone else that was in student government. I was too. In college, I was the president of student government at some point, nice. Surprisingly.
Yeah.
But so interesting things happen in college, right? We figure out who we're, at least we get an inkling of who we are.
Right.
Have you ever gone to a networking event or a conference and found that although you made great connections and you walked away with a stack full of business cards, you still didn't have a real plan for how to get a good return on your investment of both time and money? Well, let me tell you, having a networking and sales planner is a way for you to be more intentional about the way that you network.
Hey, I'm Susan Gladstein. I'm a functional nutrition and metabolism specialist, and I got connected with Tish because she is a rock star at systems and sales. And so I downloaded the planner to help get my brain organized as I went through a rebrand and launched a new course. And it's really helped me sort of get things out of my head and onto paper so that I can actually do follow-ups and not just rely on my brain. So far it's rocking my world and making my business systems that were non-existent actually have some sort of structure. So I love it. It's amazing. And I'm so grateful that our paths have crossed.
I've been working with sales professionals for almost 15 years. And one of the things that I find is that when they don't have a plan, they do nothing. They sit at their desk and wonder what to do. Well, with this networking and sales planner, you have profit producing activities for every single day of the week. It tells you where to go, what to say, even gives you prompts as to how to interact with people that you don't know. If you're an introvert and you feel like this isn't for you, I have already thought of you because I understand exactly how introverts think. So this gives you the tools enabling you to be armed with words, with language, so that you can make your networking more profitable.
Hey everyone, Rachel Neighbors here from solo401k.com. And I wanted to take a moment to talk about how awesome this sales networking planner is that Tish put out. So as you can see, I have it on my Remarkable. That's my sort of e-ink planner. And this sales planner has been so helpful for me. So I'm an old school pay-per-click marketer. I do Google ads, Facebook ads, and I know how to turn advertising into profit. But I didn't know how to turn network sales into profit. And when I met Tish, this woman literally wrote the book on networking called, Networking is Not a One-Night Stand. And she's put that experience and that energy and those valuable tips into this networking sales planner. And I just think that it can be so powerful for you in your business. I know it's been really helpful for me and mine. One thing that Tish told me is, Rachel, when you meet someone, put them into your planner and then follow up with them like they're a lead that you've generated on Google Ads or that you followed up with or that you've generated on Facebook. And that has been so helpful and transformative in my business. So thank you, Tish, for this awesome planner.
Maybe you don't even like networking. You say things like, networking doesn't work. Well, let me tell you, when you have a plan in place, you have some intention, and you have the tools to be able to make it work, you will see a different result. My new networking and sales planner is a game changer. It's the difference between you going to an event, wandering around and walking away without any purpose and without any new money, and walking into an event with a plan, with a purpose, and being able to convert new clients into your business. No one wants to feel inauthentic and pushy or even salesy when following up. So frequently we just don't do it at all. Well, the profitable follow-up formula, which is in the back of your networking and sales planner, will give you the tools and the language and the frequency with which you should be following up so that it feels very authentic. It feels genuine and natural both to you and to the people that you're reaching out to. Go to tishtimes.com/planner to get your digital or physical version of your planner.
Hi, my name is Cheryl James from CL James Consulting, and I just want to tell you a little bit about how awesome this networking sales planner is. I started intentionally networking at the beginning of this year, and I have been using my planner on a regular basis, not only to get inspiration, but to track the people I want to meet and the people I have met, and to make sure that I follow up with them from week to week. So if you are looking to network intentionally and hold yourself accountable, this planner is a must-have.
And once you get your planner, you'll also receive a video series that's going to teach you how to maximize your networking and how to use this planner to get the best result and best return on your investment of both time and money. If you are ready to stop wasting time with networking and turn your networking into a sales machine, then go to tishtimes.com/planner and grab your networking and sales planner. When I hear people say that they're, maybe launching something or having a big event, I hear people often say that they should write a press release, and that's going to make a big splash, a
Mhm.
big thing. What are your thoughts about just the average entrepreneur releasing a press release, and what would you say is the adequate steps that, an entrepreneur should be taking?
Yeah, so just writing a press release is not going to necessarily lead to coverage. It can in certain instances. So within your industry, trade publications actually do use press releases pretty verbatim in many cases because they don't have large editorial teams to like write an original story based off of the press release, but larger media outlets do. So larger media outlets, your New York Times of the world, they're not going to write a story directly from a press release. That might get their attention, but they get a lot of those pitches every day. So it's going to take more to get them interested in featuring you. Whereas a trade publication, they will take that press release and they will plop it onto their website or in their newsletter. So if your audience is more of that B2B trade audience, like your a professional services company, or you're in an ecosystem where you have partners and that kind of enterprise customer focus, then you could get away with just doing a press release. But you also need to know who to send it to, and that's where it will take a lot of work to cobble that together yourself. Whereas you could save a lot of time by finding somebody that has been in PR in your space for a long time and knows exactly who to share that news with. But also, we caution that just doing a press release for the first time, and that's your first point of contact with the journalist in your space, that's not necessarily enough to get their attention. Ideally, they've been hearing from you for a while before you have that big launch. So I often like to start with maybe some thought leadership where we're pitching your expertise, you're available for commenting on stories before you make that launch announcement or put that announcement out. For events, that's a tricky one because there's a lot of criteria it needs to meet. Is it an event for the public? Is it something that it really resonates with their viewers or their readers? So doing a press release around an event is a tricky one. I wouldn't say that's my number one go-to.
Yeah. And I hear it so often. I've done press releases myself, and you kind of wonder, well, did they just go into a black hole? Does anybody see them?
Yeah, they do.
What's the
Yeah.
biggest thing, right?
Yeah. And so the other piece of press releases now that's gotten very interesting is with AI and LLMs is that they are pulling in content from press releases that live on the wire.
Mm-hmm.
So we used to tell clients, like, it's worth, for big announcements, it's worth putting a press release out over the wire because they are searchable. And we've had producers from like national, news outlets contact us because they found a press release by doing a Google search. Now LLMs are consuming the information in press releases that are put out over the wire. So if it's messaging in your press release, it's going to live on, that's more evergreen in nature because let's say you're launching a new product, then it might make sense to actually put a press release out so that it helps speed that, AI kind of search experience.
Interesting. So for those of us who aren't in that world and don't know what it means when you say put it all on the wire, what exactly does that mean?
So that means you basically distribute it through a service that posts it online and sends it directly to newsrooms, and it's lives on the web. So it's going to be searchable through Google or AI.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes perfect sense. So you made reference earlier to, getting in front of journalists and people who can actually help your clients get the visibility or the notoriety that they need is almost like making sales calls because it's sometimes difficult to get in front of them. What's one of the most interesting or unconventional ways that you've been able to capture the attention of one of those journalists or even maybe a possible client that you look back and go, that was kind of brilliant?
I mean, I have met clients at events. I have had clients find me because I was on a podcast. So I do think there's something to be said for being visible. That does help with journalists too. If they are, hearing about you a lot or seeing you featured in other places, that might convince them to speak with you, depending on what it is. If it's a product and you're able to cite that there's a lot of like really positive reviews, or that you have a big social following, if you have any of those like points of proof points that show that you are a beloved product, that will help journalists consider writing about you. And then if you're more of a professional service provider, definitely everything feeds each other. So being on podcasts makes it easier to pitch the media, and being featured in the media makes it easier to pitch podcasts. Being, on podcasts can lead to speaking at conferences. So it all builds upon each other. I think one of the most important things to do when you're reaching out to journalists or podcasts is to think about how to hook them with a subject line that is relevant to what they cover, because that's going to get their attention, just like a good email would in sales. If someone's taken the time to understand what matters to you, and you get an email that the subject line kind of speaks to that, you're going to give it a second look versus ignoring it. So, overly generic emails don't work in sales or PR, right?
They don't. You're absolutely right. The other thing that, we talk a lot about is really seeing the person instead of seeing their wallet, right? When we're talking about sales, making that genuine connection and building a relationship with them. How important would you say that is also in PR as it is in sales?
Yeah, I see a lot of similarities around like being patient and building a relationship and not rushing to close, right? So it's the same between, trying to get a customer as it is trying to get a journalist interested in covering you. It's not going to necessarily happen the first interaction, right? So you have to kind of keep coming back to the table with new angles, new ideas. And what I loved about, some of the early ways that you and I worked together was brainstorming, like, what are some other ways to stay connected to a potential client that is, not just sending an email. What are some other things that can be done?
Yeah.
And it does work.
Yeah. I love that there's such a great parallel here, because I think in business, we tend to think that you can basically, what's that word? Bother someone so much to where they're just going to say yes. Same way in sales, you can't, stalk a person to death to make them buy something from you. And I often think that in PR, or at least what we think from a business perspective, PR is that if I send them enough information, they're going to finally write my article. They're going to finally interview me. And that's probably not the case. So relationship building is the same, right? What are the top three, maybe 3 to 5 things, Amy, that you would love for business owners, people who are looking to get in front of the right audiences, who are really wanting to get that big break, if you will, that big moment where they're being recognized in front of a bigger platform? What are some of the things that you wish people would do? Because I'm sure you look around and you go, oh my God, why did they do that? Or, there's a better way to do that. What are some of the things that you would recommend?
Making the connection between whatever your brand serves, whatever your unique offering is as a business, making the connection between that and a journalist or a podcast is critical. And if you don't do that, then it is going to go into the abyss. And so I think just having that empathy of, just because you send them an email doesn't mean that they're going to even read it. So what can you do to show the connection between what your unique brand proposition is and what they cover? And also don't be afraid to try again, come up with a new angle, think about what's in the news, what people are talking about, what people are searching about, what you're seeing on social media. All of those trends are things that they're thinking about too. So connection and timeliness are really important. And I often see people think, oh, I can just send out a press release or send, one pitch, and like, of course they're going to want to write about me. And it's like, it's not just about you, it's about them as well. So what's the connection between the two of you? And then also timing is everything. And I have heard from companies that want to, make an announcement next week, or they want to get, featured during the holidays, but they haven't started and it's November. And it's like, you got to get out there a lot earlier. You can't expect it's not the same as social media where you can whip up a post. You really have to plan ahead. And so it's even just getting into that mentality of having like an editorial calendar where like 2 to 3 months before something happens, you are starting to lay the groundwork with your PR efforts. It's something that we are often coaching our clients through.
That is brilliant, actually, because it never occurred to me the way that we almost like plan to launch a new service or have an event or something of that nature. We put together that marketing or editorial calendar. Probably, I think most entrepreneurs aren't thinking about their PR in that same way. So,
Yeah.
Amy, we're getting close on time, which is like, God, it goes so fast. I would love to hear a success story. Tell us about someone who came to you and, probably didn't even know what they were doing, but know that they knew that they needed someone's help and they came to you. What's something that comes to mind for you?
It makes me think about a client that we recently started working with earlier this year, and they had kind of a mixed experience with another agency. And I hear this a lot because every agency is different, and there's a lot of horror stories out there. And I have adopted some of these clients where they've had bad experiences, and then they've come to us and we've shown them like, no, this is how it can go. It can work much better. And I think what's been so wonderful about them is that they're very collaborative. They bring us lots of ideas, and they tell us exactly what, their priorities are. And it's a very engaging interaction every time. And we love that because it gives us all kinds of ideas. And they're also open to what we recommend. And as a result, we have had a lot of success getting them featured on podcasts, getting them featured in trade publications. And it's opening doors for them. It's leading to like sales conversations that they haven't been able to unlock before. And so I think just that is an ideal scenario where it is a true partnership and there's trust that, we know PR, your business, we're going to give each other that insight so that we can each make the best decisions about, how to work together. So there's a level of trust there and really knowing what your strengths are that works really well. And it's leading to some really exciting coverage for them.
Well, you have given us a lot to consider, a lot to think about. Who would you say, you mentioned a few industries that you really focus on, but who would you say you're uniquely gifted to serve? Who is your ideal client, if they're listening right now, that should be reaching out to you?
Yeah, so I'll start with our ideal client is that truly collaborative partner that has somebody on their team that is just like exploding with knowledge, because journalists love to have an expert to speak to. They need to have availability to be that resource for journalists. And most importantly, they understand it takes time and they're willing to put in the work with us to see it, be successful. So that's really what we look for in an ideal partner. And then, the other piece of it was, just around like industries that we're really passionate about. I mentioned health, safety, and family-focused brands, but really women's health for me is an area that's so exciting to be a part of. In addition to running an agency, I volunteer with the American Heart Association's Go Red for Women program, and learning about cardiovascular health risks that are unique to women and being an advocate for women's heart health has just reinforced my desire as an agency to help more brands and companies that are also focused on women's health. So it can be everything from fertility to menopause and all of the different, health journeys that we are on as women. That's something that we're really passionate about as an agency right now.
Wonderful. Amy, how do those people find you?
So you can come to our website, talesplash.com. You can find us on LinkedIn and Instagram. And we always love to learn about what your goals are, because we can help figure out the right path for you from a PR standpoint. You don't have to know anything about PR to, begin the conversation. We can take care of that piece of it. We just want to know, what are your goals?
Wonderful. So, ladies and gentlemen, those of y'all who are listening, you heard some amazing gems from Amy Jackson. I want you to put something into practice that you learned today. Know that she's given us some ideas around putting a plan in place, finding the right person to partner with, and then building that partnership and giving it the time that it needs to really create the types of results that you want. So reach out to Amy if, in fact, you're one of the persons that she kind of referenced, and she's just an amazing person to connect with. So Amy, thank you so much for being on the Sold Out Sales podcast. I look forward to seeing you again really soon.
Thank you, Tish. It's always a pleasure.
Wonderful. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next week. Thanks for hanging out with us on the Sold Out Sales podcast. Thanks for listening to the Sold Out Sales podcast. I would be so appreciative if you would show me and my amazing guests some love by leaving a review on your favorite podcasting platform. Also, go over to tishtimes.com/resource page and make sure you pick up your sales and networking handbook, especially for introverts. Also, I'd love to continue this conversation, so make sure you connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I'll see you back here next week.